Back to back to back, baby. The Marlins going back to back to back. Home runs in the 8th inning, propelling them to a 5-1 victory over the Houston Astros. What a game. First time they've done that since the late 90s. It's been that long. The offense continues to hum. Braxton Garrett, is he starting to fatigue? Tanner Scott, boy, oh boy, he has been immense in that pen. And Jon Berti, baby, is red hot. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England. Welcome to Locked On Marlins. This, of course, is your daily Marlins podcast. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. This, of course, is your team every day. There is a YouTube channel. Also, head on over there. We're almost at 950 subscribers. We are trending for every home run that the Marlins hit. I expect at least 10 more subscribers. We should be up to like 2,000 real soon. Make sure you hit subscribe there too, guys. If you are watching, it is a Tuesday and unplanned, but the UK go back in the house. Shaun Barrett, how are we doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Pete. Never mind. Never dislike a talk with you about baseball, so happy to jump on for the second time this week.
Absolutely. This should be fun, mate, because, I mean, we've been blessed. We've been blessed with 3 wild games in a row, all for different reasons. We talked yesterday about Sandy Alcantara's complete game. We then talk about the wild walk-off win. Then you get the Astros rolling into town. We're all a little bit nervous about this. Are they going to be pummeled? Is the Astros offense going to come alive? Can the Marlins keep them quiet? Can their offense do anything? Then we have a situation in the 8th inning where there are 3 home runs in a row. Shaun, this hasn't happened for me as a Marlins fan at any point. I'm not sure I ever expected to see this, to be honest with you. It feels like for so long, this offense has been built not around the home run. And, well, actually, no, it was, but it was flawed when the big boys couldn't go. Now, all of a sudden, we've got the right big boys in, and they are going. And this is seriously fun to watch, though, mate, right?
Absolutely. You say the big boys, but obviously one of them was Luis Arraez, who famously only
he's found the power stroke. In the 3-hole, mate. Luis Arraez seems to have just come alive. He's found the power stroke in that spot, which is really interesting as well. But yeah, sorry, I cut you off, but what a fun to watch.
It's a situation where obviously he's a contact hitter and he's shown the ability to hit 9 on 400s for an extended period of time. And I hear a lot of people talking about Ichiro Suzuki, who did hit for a lot of power early in his time when he came over to America, but then became more of a contact hero as he aged. But he always spoke, and I'm sure Luis Arraez could as well. He could add a bit more power to that swing and take a bit off that contact. And I think he could genuinely hit 20, 25 home runs with a lesser batting average. But obviously he's shown the ability to hit 400, and I think that for the Marlins is something that's well worth keeping hold of. But for him to be in the middle of that back-to-back, and as you said, it's been a while. It's 98, I think I've heard it people talk about, and that's way before my time. So that really is a long time ago.
Yeah, there you go. That's how long it is. And to your point, the Soler situation, definitely not a surprise. Soler just having a stunning season. Josh Bell, not a surprise based on what he's been doing. But for Luis Arraez to kind of be sandwiched in there. And also, but what you're seeing with Luis Arraez is there's a hot zone for him where he can absolutely turn on one if he wants to. Not if he wants to, but he can. If the ball is in that spot, he has the ability, it's up and in and actually in off the plate. All of a sudden, he has the kind of ability to torque that one and really get it. They often go close to the foul, they're foul pole scrapers, often because they're so far in. But he has the ability to turn on them, mate. So, a lot of Luis Arraez's stuff is, I think fundamentally with him, he takes what the pitcher gives him and he can do anything he wants, but it's not predetermined in his mind about, I want to go here. It's, I'm going to see what they give me and I know I can handle it and do anything I want with it. And what we're seeing is that off the plate and in towards his hands, which should be uncomfortable. Luis Arraez is turning on them. Like, that's 2 home runs in 3 games. So, all of a sudden the MVP conversation may be back around here. I don't know, but it is so impressive with Luis Arraez, the fact that he can do it all, and it isn't pre-programmed about what he's doing. He'll just take what the pitcher's given him, right?
Yeah, it's funny because we saw in the World Baseball Classic, he got 1 or 2 home runs during that, and it kind of opened our eyes to the fact that there is a bit of a power stroke there. But the ability to drop a hit mid-pitch, wherever you want to put it, you see where the pitch is coming, where you can handle that too, is such a skill, and that speaks to the reason why he's such a unicorn in the idea that he can hit 400 when everyone else is hitting 230 or whatever the major league average is at the moment. He's the best back to ball player in baseball in my eyes right now.
Agreed. And for him, a slump is like a 1 for 9 stretch. Like, that's a slump, and then he comes back and just starts lighting it up. And it's kind of funny. And I think this is part of it, right? Our expectation levels of Luis Arraez have been set so high because it felt like he's been hitting 400 like all year, and we've had that conversation rolling on. We're into August, and people are still talking about Arraez maybe being able to get to 400, which sounds unlikely, I would say, at this phase. It sounded a touch more likely earlier in the year, but as a fan base, in this narrative that's been created with Luis Arraez, I think that's kind of part of the problem here, where we're expecting a multi-hit game, a 4-hit game, a 5-hit game, every day. And clearly that is, to your point, I think I saw you talking about on Twitter as well, the BABIP gods will kick in at times, good and bad. And there'll be the odd strikeout, there's things outside his control. So overall, I think our expectations as fans for Arraez have been a little bit too lofty, but nevertheless, he still remains, to your point as well, the best bat-to-ball contact hitter in the game by some margin. And it's really impressive to see that he does have that power stroke in there too. Josh Bell as well, though, made chipping in again. It was his birthday as well yesterday, so home run on his birthday. Boy, oh boy, Josh Bell. We spoke about it, I think, yesterday on the episode. We spoke about Berger as well, but Josh Bell is just on some kind of tear right now, mate. And I'm starting to get really nervous about this player option, to be honest with you.
I mean, it'd be interesting. $16.5 million is an awful lot of money.
It really is.
And I think it'll be okay. But I mean, if he does hit himself out of that contract, then the trade has been successful too, because where does that put the Marlins? I mean, that should have to put them in the playoff for sure. No, if he's going to hit himself in a couple of weeks out of $16.5 million after, let's be honest, the poor year he had to begin with, ever since he came over, and Berger's the same. Both of them they both seem to really be enjoying their baseball, optically, from literally thousands of miles away. I can see it through the screen. These guys really are enjoying their baseball, and it's translating onto the field as well, which is fantastic. It is a case of they've been taken from bad situations, a bad year, into a playoff run, and they've just absolutely lit up the place. And right now, that is huge for the Marlins.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to talk about as well Braxton Garrett, though, mate, as well, because I think that was another storyline. It could have been a bigger story if things had gone maybe differently for the Marlins in this game. But let's talk about Braxy after the first ad. For me, we've always known with Braxton that he's going to burst through his innings, his career number. And I do wonder if now we're into kind of mid-August, if there is an element of him starting to labor a touch. I also wonder if the same could be true for Jesus Luzardo, by the way, too. So I do wonder how the Marlins can manage that situation. We'll talk about that after the ad. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Ibotta. And Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. Or you could use the cash to buy that flight that you've been eyeing, yes sir, that game you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code MLB when you register. You heard that correct, guys. All you have to do is use the code MLB and register and try Ibotta, and you get $5. Easy as that. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use the code MLB. That's Ibotta as in IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use that code MLB. All right, you're here on Tuesday with UK GOAT Shaun Barrett and myself, Peter Pratt. The Marlins were bombs away in Game 1 against the Astros, taking that game. Braxton Garrett was the starter. And Shaun, I think there's maybe some signs of fatigue kicking off here with Braxton Garrett. What have you seen, though, specifically?
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at the box score and you could just say 5 scoreless innings against a red-hot Houston Astros, a team that in the second half so far have averaged 6 runs a game. The Marlins only give up the 1 run, and obviously Garrett shuts them out. But yeah, he really did sort of walk a tightrope. There was a double play in there that was needed, and the 1 strikeout in 5 innings is always going to sort of raise eyebrows.
Definitely.
The batting odds for him were very fortuitous for him. If you look at some of the advanced numbers, the 0 ERA but the 5.38 xFIP just tells you kind of how lucky he was on that start. And I say all that like I didn't watch the game, but I did. And it was just a case of the stuff wasn't super electric, and it was just 4 hits and 2 walks. It's not egregious over 5 innings. It felt like he just got lucky that there was that case of you're watching scoreless inning after scoreless inning and you're not celebrating. You're thinking, we dodged a bullet there. You're waiting for that big blow-up inning. And luckily, it never came. And he was able to go through 5. But, yeah, he's now passed over 10 innings past his numbers last year. So there's still some starts left there. But 5, maybe sort of sprinkle in a 6-inning start for the next couple of starts, I think is going to be what we should be expecting. But 5 is probably going to be what we're going to see more often than not, because it is a case of he's still a young guy and he's still unproven. We came into the season with him not even being in the starting rotation. It is a case of right now he's got to work through and almost labor through the rest of this season now, because the Marlins are going to need him. And you mentioned Luzardo as well. That's going to be somewhat the same situation. That is why, for me, the biggest issue I have right now, or at least from the deadline, is that they didn't get that extra arm. The Marlins really do need another arm in this rotation, because these young guys are going to start to struggle. And against these high-performing offenses, that's going to really show quite quickly. Luckily, I think we got that 1 win that you talked about yesterday from this series from Garrett, and now we can play with house money. So in a way, Marlins were lucky, bit of voodoo maybe. That's kind of what's carried us so far, and long may it continue.
The first half Marlins are 100% back. I mean, I think we spoke about it yesterday as well, but that was a lucky win in many ways. Like, it wasn't lucky when by the time they got to the 8th, they absolutely turned it on. But to be leading going into the bottom of the 8th, I think was probably fortunate. Not only with Brax, but also Tanner Scott. He had to deal with some chaos, coming in. And, I think the plan was for him to maybe face one hitter. Like, they played the kind of platoon there, but the plan was to face one guy, get out the inning, and then get into the 8th. Obviously, then he gives up, a hit, a couple of hits. He has to deal with a couple of extra guys in that inning. And you're thinking, okay, that's going to be Tanner Scott done. Where are they going to turn to next? No, Tanner Scott rolls out for the 8th as well. Boy, oh boy, this is Iron Man type stuff here for Tanner Scott. And I must say as well, I didn't think he had his full stuff. Like, Luzardo the other day definitely didn't have his best stuff. I don't think Braxton Garrett had his best stuff in the start. And I don't think Tanner Scott had his best stuff either coming out in relief. So maybe there's the sign, elements of fatigue kicking in, but overall for Tanner Scott, mate, like for him to knuckle down and get through as well that 8th was pretty incredible stuff, I think. What about you?
Yeah, it was huge to actually get there. I mean, it was a struggle in my eyes anyway. I've discussed this on Twitter with a few people who probably have better baseball minds than I, but for me, the biggest issue that was 35 pitches is what Tanner threw yesterday. And with a man on first and second, 1 out, he gets that ground ball double play. And to be fair, it was a hard hit ball, but it was hit right at somebody, but hit so hard that they struggled with it. The actual ball had an batted average of 580. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just got as much it's got more of a chance to fall as a hit than not.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about a completely different ball game. At worst, at best, it's tie game, man on first and third, 1 out. Tanner Scott's thrown best part of 30 pitches. Like that could almost certainly be ball game at that point. That's pre-bombs away. Again, in that scenario, I'd say that the Marlins really did get lucky.
They did. It was sprinkled throughout the game. And it's funny, George, Astros UK George, texted me this morning just saying, man, oh man, that was frustrating to watch. So again, it's interesting to see how others see it. And he was like, man, that was just so unlucky. So many hard hit balls, so many opportunities, where hits just didn't quite fall. Wasn't their day. And that's just the way it goes sometimes in baseball. And we just have to, and I said, listen, George, I completely get it. Really lucky, but I'm just celebrating the fact that Marlins had an inning where they went back to back to back home runs in Lone Depot as well, just to call that out. And the other thing too is you had Framber Valdez. I remember looking up at one point, I think heading into the 8th, and he'd thrown 70-odd pitches. I was thinking, this could be a complete game loss here for Framber Valdez. It's kind of a Sandy Alcantara special, maybe. Like, it wouldn't have shocked me if the Astros did get the lead, that it could have been a complete game from Framber Valdez. He was in complete control, it felt like. He was, like I said, it was 70 or maybe 71, 72 heading into the 8th. And I was like, man, this is, so impressive. But in the end, the Marlins, they get the damage done in that 8th inning, which was a lot of fun. Let's do the next ad. Then I feel like we have to talk about, it was almost emergency podcast territory, news dropping that the Marlins have signed another free agent, thinking it's the 15th of August. How have they signed a free agent? But they have signed a free agent. It is some catching depth, and it is an old friend in Jorge Alfaro. So we're going to talk about that as well, and we're going to talk about Jon Berti impacting the game yesterday and impacting this team just more generally here for the Marlins over the past at least month, where he has been absolutely sensational. But let's pump the graphics up. It is FanDuel season. There we go. We've got the FanDuel graphics up, and as I've already mentioned, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and football season is about to kick off, guys, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Yes, you heard that correctly. You bet on a Super Bowl winner, and you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. I wouldn't recommend going hard on the Rams just to call that out, but anyway, just pick any team to win the Super Bowl and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is a stunning offer, by the way, from FanDuel. I really like that one. Really like it. And I'm intrigued, that guys tune in right now. I'm intrigued to see how many are going to be plowing in on the Dolphins. I mean, just imagine the Marlins take it home and then the Dolphins just double down. Boy, oh boy, that would be wild. Nevertheless, let's keep it rolling here. Shaun Barrett is here, the UK GOAT, and myself, Peter Pratt. Final segment here. We want to talk about the return. Jorge Alfaro signed to a minor league contract. He has been knocking around a lot recently, Jorge Alfaro. Pops up every now and again, seems to always, the profile, we know the profile. Fun character. Was a big part of the Marlins club for many years because they had really no other options until Jacob Stallings came in. And he's back. And he's been, I believe, assigned signed to the Jumbo Shrimp, so he's hitting up in Jacksonville in AAA. Immediate reaction here, Shaun, the Jorge Alfaro back with the Marlins when, like, it feels like there was a few catchers that already were kind of like rising up and, could have an opportunity. And so I think it's a really interesting signing. What did you make of it?
I think it's a case of it's a 30-year-old catcher with major league experience who clearly wasn't getting any offers, wasn't getting picked up anywhere. Like, anytime you can get a 30-year-old catcher with experience, like, they deserve to be inside an organization. And to be fair to him, he's hit really well in Colorado and Boston when on minor league assignment, less so at the major league level. So for me, it is a case of, like, if the Marlins get to a situation where they have to call Alfaro up because there's an issue with Stallings or Fortes, then maybe that's a better option than bringing up a young guy who's not quite ready for the show in a playoff spot. I mean, it is a case of, for me, it's depth for depth's sake.
Great shout.
I don't expect to see him at the major league level unless something happens to one of the two catchers. But for me, it is a case of, I'll have to harken back to what I said to him when he was last with the Marlins. It is a case of he's that toolsy guy, isn't it? He's got up for days. He's got speed, not just for a catcher. He's actually a speedy guy in general. He's got all the tools. He just can't put them together. It's me with a bit of IKEA.
Mate, it's Monte Harrison with some catching gear, in my opinion. Like, it's so many tools. Could be good, should be good, never can quite piece it together. I mean, you've definitely seen more highlights from Jorge Alfaro than Monte Harrison, I have to say. So I'm probably doing him a disservice. I think you make a perfect point there, Shaun, that this is an insurance policy of a known entity should anything happen at the back end of the year and going into a postseason, let's say. And feels smart, actually. It kind of feels smart, like, just to have that insurance policy kind of sat there. The Marlins and Skip, he's spoken really glowingly, I'd say, about Fortes and Stallings for some time. And, it was clear, like, there was, like, the Marlins were, I think, thinking about the catching market earlier in the trade kind of deadline, trade season, etc. And I think they just made a call to move away from that. It's really hard to upgrade catchers anyway during this season, seemingly. But, I think there were a few guys that were maybe attainable, but I think they went and used their prospect capital elsewhere, which probably was a sensible play. But Skip's always been really positive about those guys. I just think, to your point, Jorge Alfaro, really good insurance policy there that, if needed, could come up, would have some familiarity with at least Sandy, maybe one or two others. I don't know. So, yeah, we'll see. Big news, I guess. You called this one out. We want to talk about Jon Berti in advance of the show. Rightly so. Obviously, Jon Berti yesterday impacting the game, stolen third base, which was impressive. And Jon Berti, not just stealing bases, but impacting the game with a stick as well, mate. So what have you seen with Berti? And equally, how does this impact his role at this point, kind of for the last 6 weeks of this year?
So, yeah, I mean, actually yesterday in the game, he hit the double to get the first run on the board and then scored after stealing third and then on a wild pitch that almost looked like it had been a foul ball.
It did.
So there was some real heads-up running from him. So it wasn't just the home runs at the end of the game. That's kind of where the Marlins got their lead. So absolutely influencing it. And for me, Berti, he's always been that sort of Swiss Army guy, the guy that I say you put in the false nine spot when he starts, but otherwise you want him on the bench. But for the last month, so the 16th of July to now, he's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. He's got a 124 WRC plus. He's hitting 342. He's got over 900 OPS. It's crazy, and it's not a small sample size because it is that almost a month, but it is a small sample size because he's playing enough in that time to really. He's only got 76 plate appearances over that month, and my question is why? It's not like Wendell's really offering much in the way with the stick. The defense, I think they're both sort of interchangeable across multiple positions. My question is, in a playoff run, why isn't Berti getting a bit more run of the game when he's clearly absolutely hitting?
It's a really good point. And I think a lot of people have been thinking that for some time, really, with Berti. Like, it's clear that he's been pacing it. We also, I would say, a lot of people have this view now, which I think was probably put forward originally by Craig Mish. And so that's often how things work. If Craig puts something forward, there's logic behind it and we can understand it. And his view was that Berti's a much better player when he's playing less frequently. The less you play him, the better he is. The more you play him, the worse he becomes. And I think we've all kind of latched onto that, and that's become like the truth. It's become the truth of the situation. I'm completely with you, by the way, on the defense. It is interchangeable with Wendell and Berti. Although that Berti throw to short, to second base, but he was playing short. When was that? It was last week when Arraez went to second base. It was like the simplest of throws, looking to turn a double play, and it was like almost he had the yips. They just completely misplayed that one, and that wasn't his finest moment. That game, I don't think, was generally the Marlins' finest game at all. But yeah, to your point, Berti, he just fits this profile so well for the Marlins, just manufacturing things. Like you said yesterday, he gets the double, and he laced that double, by the way. He absolutely blasted it. Then he's on second, steals third, and then you get, the wild pitch heads-up play. So he's that kind of guy. You need those kind of guys, and it adds so much versatility and balance to this offense, and we saw it. Without Jon Berti yesterday, the Marlins aren't winning that game. Without Jon Berti, those couple of plays, the double, the stolen base, and the heads-up play, I don't think the Marlins win it. Next thing is they maybe trail by a run or two. Maybe the Marlins give up on it, don't use, Tanner Scott 35 pitches. Next thing is it gets out of hand and you go, hey, white flag it. So, I honestly think we'll all look at the home runs, the back-to-back-to-back, but I think Jon Berti won that game in that inning with his play. Great point, Shaun. One final one. Wanted to call out Loud Marlins fan. He dropped me a voice note. That's how close we are. I'm getting voice notes from Loud Marlins fan. And he called out to me. He said, Pete, I want you to know this stat about Johnny Cueto heading into this evening's game. So Johnny Cueto going in game 2. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this stat, but I wanted to just raise it. He said, and I haven't verified that this is true either, so this could be misinformation, but anyway. He said Johnny Cueto will be making back-to-back starts on the 15th of August versus the Houston Astros. He started exactly on the same day last year against the Astros. And I think he said he went 8 innings against the Astros a year ago exactly. So I don't know if he's expecting 8 innings of high-quality Johnny Cueto. I don't know. But he did say, how frequently does that happen where you go year on year and you face the same opponent and pitch against them? So I have to tip my cap to Loud Marlins fan on that one, that if that is correct, which is unverified, that is one hell of a stat. And I tell you, if Johnny Cueto goes 8 innings, then we will all say there was even more Marlins voodoo around that one. But just more generally, Shaun, Johnny Cueto against one of the hottest offenses in baseball right now, this is probably his sternest test, I would say, since returning back into this rotation. It's been better than expected. But equally, there's been a few soft landing spots along the way for Cueto. This one, I think, is his biggest test to date, right?
Absolutely. First of all, I can confirm he did pitch against the Astros last year on this date. And did throw 80 innings.
Well done, Chase.
And he pitched seemingly well, but also there's a big difference between the ERA and the xFIP. So maybe he got as equally lucky as Brax did this year.
Let's keep it rolling.
If Cueto in any way goes 80 innings today, I will be hugely shocked. I will happily take 5 innings and a couple of runs, and let's see how we go. But yeah, it is going to be a stern test. You're right that he has had, I'm looking at the game log right now, apart from the Phillies, he's had a real soft landing everywhere. And the Phillies game was probably one of his worst. So it will be interesting. I'm just hoping, again, I'm watching the game live late, so I'm hoping that the Marlins can at least keep it close throughout the game. Otherwise, it might be an early finish for me and Cueto too.
It could be There's a decent chance we see Brian Hoeing, I would say, this evening. A really decent shot that it's necessary. I hope not. And to your point earlier, they've won the first game in the series. In many ways, the numbers say it was a lucky win. The eyeballs will tell us it was kind of a lucky win too, but it doesn't matter. Win's a win. And who knows how it goes tonight. The reality is, irrespective of the pitching matchups, this Marlins offense right now is just finding ways to get some dubs, which has been so impressive. And so I won't rule anything out right now. And I won't look at any game and go, well, that's an automatic dub or an automatic L. And I think Skip talked about this recently too, post-game, just saying, listen, like every game is hard to win. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Every single game is tough to win. And, the Marlins are looking at the schedule right now. It feels like it's tough. And it is tough in many ways. The Astros defended champs, and they're playing really well at this point. It's tough. They're about to go on the road and play the Dodgers and Padres. On the face of it, that looks tough as well because the Dodgers are scorching hot, I think, as the Astros, offensively particularly. Padres, who knows? But, I don't think you can just simply look at these games, these pitching matchups and go, that's a win or loss. So much can happen in these games. So much needs to happen to win these games. And so much luck comes into it too, which is what we saw last night. But overall, to your point though, Shaun, if Cueto can give us 5 innings of like a couple of runs worth, then that's the baseline. That's the barometer for Cueto at this point. That's what we need out of him. 5 innings, keep us in the game. If it's a couple of innings worth of work and he's blowing up and Hoeing's in there and he's then got to go 3 and so is Soriano, the next thing is Penn's decimated. You're into Luzardo tomorrow and all of a sudden Luzardo's got no cover. And let's be honest, Luzardo has definitely been having similar kind of struggles to Braxton. And so the pressure then kind of leads into him. Let's call it a day there, though. That's been a lot of fun. 32 minutes of bombs. Of Brax, of old friends, Tanner Scott. Boy, oh boy, there's a lot going on in Marlins world right now. But I appreciate everyone joining myself, Peter Pratt, and the UK GOAT, Shaun Barrett, on Tuesday's episode of Locked On Marlins. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. First pitch is just about 1 hour away. So time for Shaun to get a few adult beverages in him. Time for me to go to bed. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. See you then, guys.